hot seat for a while, answering some questions, as is often the case. Members are very passionate to learn about our approaches to growing membership and what's within membership. So a lot of questions are directed to that. As a reminder, I'll be keeping an eye on chat still, so any questions that you have, please do put in the chat, and I'll try and work for a chronological order to get to them. First question, cast your mind back to the start and to the visuals you saw, the changes in membership, and that Holly was very proud of the kind of the growth that we've been seeing. Stephen just asked a question. He said that he commented that his SG membership had actually been going down, and that his financial services specialist group event audiences are actually about 60% plus non-members. And so he was just asking around the need for a kind of good value proposition to help recruit members from that financial sector. Holly, I don't know if you've got any reflections. It's a bit more of a comment, but I don't know if you've got any reflections or any kind of tips to help support Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what a great opportunity that you've got 60% non-members coming to your group is the first thing. And, you know, you've always got that 20% off code for you as an SG that you can use with new members. I would think that, you know, it's all around, it's great that we've got this available to provide people to get a taster of what BCS is about through our branches and groups. And also to, you know, we're not immediately asking people for money as soon as they come through the door, but of course we would like to convert them, and the value proposition is absolutely key to that. And I think there's a role to play sort of for you locally as an SG to think about, you know, in a more granular, in as much granularity as possible, who's my target audience and what's going to be interesting to them, and think about it at different career stages and in different formats so that you can sort of engage and show that there's, you know, quite a broad approach that we're taking. I think in general for financial services, it is a really quite a crowded space. It's one of the strategic verticals that we've got our eye on for organisational membership, and actually one of the large clients that I'm not allowed to name them yet because I think we're just doing the final bit of paperwork, but they're a large insurance company. So, you know, there's definitely interest in that professionalism piece. And so the way that we support organisations is around, you know, I think there's an element of BCS being the grown-up in the room and the convener of different audiences, and enabling those organisations to help navigate changes that might be happening more broadly. But there's also about providing a more industry context for their professionals, so not just sort of outside of the organisation. And the piece that I've talked about in terms of, you know, the CPD and the content, hopefully more of that will help people to see, well, no, I'm struggling with Agile at the moment, or I'm struggling with this. And so that there are tangible, practical technical things to provide to members as part of their membership. An opportunity to get mentors through our mentoring network, you know, and things like the CPD events to participate in. So, and also, you know, people are motivated differently. This is why we have the personas. And so thinking about what motivates somebody at the beginning of their career to join is quite different to someone who's an expert. So we need to create that experience so the experts can participate and can give back if they want to, and can have BCS as a bit of a platform. But the people that are sort of earlier on in their career can feel, you know, that they're welcome and participate if they want to, but, you know, they've really got that support to find their feet. I think one of the things that we've been talking about is some much clearer, sharper collateral. And John, I know that your team is looking at that at the moment in terms of some postcards and just some practical stuff that you can have. And I think there was another comment from someone in the chat about, you know, being clearer about advertising other events that we've got going and having a slide at the end of the presentation. And all of that is stuff that I think we can tighten up on and support you better. But I think it's a dual role between the branch showcasing the sort of interest for the breadth of your target community, and also that tangible practical stuff that we can provide you. So a little bit of a ramble there, but hopefully some pointers.
No, really, really helpful. So thank you, Holly. Mary's asked a question around, I guess, where do we position community and member groups as part of membership? I think from my own awareness, I know that particularly with our organisation membership and individual membership, actually, the kind of the proposition of joining a community, a network of like-minded professionals is really high up that list. The things that we promote, and certainly within our new member welcome webinars. It's quite a mouthful, that. But Chris will be presenting in the near future, has a real big chunk on that, because that's how we kind of create that energized, vibrant membership body, is by getting more people involved in the community. Charlie's asked a question, I think he picked up on your comment on your slide, easy to join and easy to join in. And he's just asking if there's any kind of timeline for improving systems that member groups are able to use to keep connecting with their members. So I've got maybe a thought on that, but I don't know if you've got anything to start us off with there, Holly.
No, I think it's a fair challenge, Charlie, in that we need to keep up really with the modern ways of communicating. I think GDPR has been quite difficult in some ways. I'm maybe open kind of worms. I know that visibility piece is suboptimal from branch committee perspectives in terms of knowing exactly who their members are. So we're doing a lot more to try and share relevant data in terms of sort of numbers so people can keep track of that, but also the community forum is a really valuable tool that we'd encourage more people to participate in. I think there are options for sort of different groups within that relating to the branch so that they can communicate with their members. John, did you want to come in on that in any more detail?
Yeah, so I think online community will play a really important role in that. I think at the moment we're on the journey of trying to get enough of a population of people into the platform for them to be a usable tool for our branches and our specialist groups to get proper engagement on a one-to-one basis and a one-to-many. So we've got quite a few tactics on how we'll be doing that over the next few months. But yeah, it's a valid question. Participation is kind of a two-way thing, right? So that's understood. Michael's just asked a bit of a question, and I guess I know Michael's quite is a bit of a business analysis, so he's quite keen to kind of understand a bit more about the membership journey and why people join and leave. Is there any kind of indication of how someone might be able to find out a bit more about that, Holly?
I think it would be just good to get a little bit more from Mike about what you'd like, and then very happy to kind of send you some information or have a chat. It is quite complicated, and that it's linked to the churn question as well that's in there, because I think as a professional body we have to accept an element of churn. That is a feature across the professional body landscape, really, particularly for ones who don't have a license to practice, and those retention percentages vary depending on what your career stage is. So, for example, we've taken a conscious decision to really focus on students and really focus on people coming in through boot camps and apprenticeships, knowing that the retention and the upgrade potential is more fragile than in other areas. But I think unless you give people that exposure to BCS at the beginning and sort of seed it in, even if they do leave, there's a higher chance of them coming back to us and sort of remaining in our sphere and keeping in touch with us if they do leave. So I think we're just trying to model what is the percentage that, so we're tracking at the moment that early careers retention so that we can say, right, we've got a baseline and this is what we should be targeting to increase it. And it will be quite low. And, at the moment, some of the early, if you aggregate a few of those groups, it's about 22%, which might fill you with horror. But actually, if you think about boot camps, people coming into boot camps, not all of them will end up staying in tech. It's a 9 to 14 week course. Not all of them will get jobs. So you've got a percentage that are falling out of that and who are not likely to renew with us. So it's just about not being too paranoid, but sort of really trying to understand more about the data at the different points of the journey. And I think we're getting better at that. We're getting more and more visibility, so that we can create interventions at the right time. And what we try to do with the onboarding piece, and links to the specialist group comment that Mary had as well, is that you know, when people come in, we've got that short space of time to create that experience and to signpost the things that are important. So as part of our onboarding journey, we have a digital welcome pack with a 100-day plan that then signposts the relevant things. We have a welcome webinar that everybody's invited to, where we have the specialist groups that showcase the, you know, volunteers on there as well, and a really real opportunity to understand a bit more about what you get as part of your membership. And then we have, depending on your profile, so for example, the early careers people will have a 6-month series of tailored emails where we're starting to look at that profile and tailor the content so that it's more relevant to those groups. And we're going to get better and better at that and have more and more groups who have sort of different versions of this. And all of that will start to drive up the retention over time. So I think it's a fine balance. And, you know, we spend hours and hours talking about this as a membership team and really sort of looking month on month to see if there are any trends that we have to worry about here and now, anything that we can do, or whether we just have to keep an eye on it for 3 months and see if it becomes a trend. So it's very much front and center and work in progress, but I think, you know, we're in a lot better a position than we were, but we are accepting that there's a sort of richer mix, and, you know, some areas the membership are, you know, the retention percentages are lower and are going to be.
Yeah. And you know, as part of Holly's team, that weekly meeting, we kind of look at those numbers, and every time there's an update, we're there then analysing and try and understand why there might be a fluctuation. So it's always forefront of mind stuff. Just gonna go to Chris just for a moment. I know lots of groups will be or have been facing sort of challenges around recruitment. I know you broadly covered it with CSC, but is there any kind of tactics that you took in trying to get that kind of diverse group? Is there anything you'd kind of like to share as a you know, one takeaway?
Yeah, I think one takeaway: don't do things that you've always done before. Be prepared to do things that you haven't done before, I think, is a key takeaway, because it was by reaching out to through different channels, reaching to different member groups, and starting to approach engagement, whether it was with groups of people or individuals, different methods, different tactics, but just make it easy to do the right thing and make it easy to be able to apply. So if there's any events that you've got going on where you're presenting and you've got non-BCS members, maybe put a quick QR code on a slide so people can just quickly apply for a registration form or something along those sort of lines. Found making it simple and quick and easy was a great benefit.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Chris. And I suppose that there's you know, to think of recruitment as an all year round practice. I know lots of people will come to the point of an AGM and then there's an immediate ask from the membership for people to kind of stand for positions. But it's really about, I guess, building that pipeline, building out your networks to ensure that when those times come around, there's lots of people kind of really excited about joining the team. So thanks for that, Chris. Coming back to Holly for a moment, Margaret asked about organisation members being automatically added to a local branch, and so the branch being introduced to local organisation members. Anything you'd like to add to that one, Holly?
Yeah, I think the individual members who are part of those organisational schemes will automatically be joined to the auto-joined to the branches. So I think that does happen, but I accept that sometimes you'll get an organisation that it has offices throughout the country. So in that case, I think it depends where it might be invoiced. So, you know, but one thing that we do have with organisations is that there's a real encouragement through the launch event. So the team, you know, with every single client have launch events, and then they have regular engagement events with those clients, so that we and they have the coordinator has a portal, so the team can feed in relevant things to that portal, so that the coordinator can then share it with people in that organizational scheme to share awareness, raise awareness. So I think there's that channel open. if we've got sort of relevant events and, you know, specific calls to action for branches or specialist groups, we could possibly add a little bit more in there. And certainly there are some organisations that are already really engaged with their branches. For example, Boots up in Nottinghamshire, you know, they've done an awful lot, and I know they've been part of, you know, Sahir's business change group as well. So some of them really do lean in, and we encourage it, but I think it's a constant work in progress. And certainly Julie's, you know, I think the dial shifted in terms of, you know, we want to work more closely with the branches and with the specialist groups to link in organisations as a vital part of that community. And we're starting to look at that more regionally, aren't we, John? So,
yeah.
You know, it's not, the formula is not quite right, but it's getting better. And I think if you've got any specific asks or things that you want to flag, we can certainly do that through the mechanism that I mentioned. And there will be focuses on certain regions, I think, where we're going to look at clustering organisations and making that more visible, and that two-way thing more effective than it is at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So being able to join up the kind of stakeholders across BCS from both corporate, academic, and our branches is the approach we're taking, and doing that in a kind of in a structured format. So we're looking at the moment in areas in which there's an abundance of those stakeholders to kind of focus our energy on supporting, joining those relationships, and then to be able to model those processes to then look at expanding that more widely across our communities. We're already overrunning, we're overrunning the session, about 10 minutes past intended close time, and I think one of our speakers, Chris, is already a victim of having to go on to the next meeting. I will take a moment to go through some other questions, but just firstly, thank you very much, Chris, for joining us today. I'm sure there's going to be lots more chances for interactions with you and the rest of the committee. But if you'd like to say anything, the floor's yours, really.
Nothing beyond thank you for everyone that's helped and supported establishing CSC, and really looking forward to working with all of you going forwards and evolving some of the things that really matter. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Chris. So we'll run through some of the more questions, some of the other questions that we have here as well, just for those who are able to kind of stick around a bit longer. I suspect probably 5 minutes, and then we'll be closing the meeting. The next question which came up, I think Collie's sort of answered already. So around branches and forthcoming events. So we try to use these quarterly updates anyway as a chance to give you a bit of what the headline things happening over the next quarter. So, you know, we'll be sending out the slides, so please do use that content and kind of talk about those events as part of your membership meetings. And working with Chris and CSC, we'll be working out how do we kind of do this in a more structured way again to make sure that information flows right between governance, staff teams, and our community groups. Just moving on to a topic which I know is really important. It's one of our policy themes, is diversity inclusion. Charlie's just asked, or not just asked, he asked about what the current BCS policies and targets to understand and analyse progress against these critical success factors. Holly, would you be able to answer that, please?
Yeah, yes and no. I'm not ducking it. So we've been running with these policy themes for about 18 months. And I think what we wanted to do initially was to get a critical head of steam so that we have, you know, multiple things to talk about. And also we're walking the talk ourselves as an organisation. You know, the great news is that we have specialist group representation across the policy areas now. Which is a real step forward, so that at least we can sort of demonstrate, you know, that we are passionate about it, that it is a theme that our members are talking about as well. And we can use partnerships as well. For example, we've got the bursary and the work with Coding Black Females, and that then produce the report and an event. And so it's not just us doing our annual report on diversity and inclusion as BCS, but we're sort of as a guest editorial slot, you know, the Coding Black Females team looked at that and focused that specifically on ethnic diversity, and the headline around it was the fact that Black women are probably the most underrepresented group in the tech profession, and what needs to be done about that, so that there's an ongoing conversation that we're having jointly. The influence board that Alistair mentioned in his governance slide was formed specifically to kind of steer what we're saying on those topics, but also to set us some targets. So at the moment, we don't have hard and fast KPIs and targets, but that is something that the influence board is going to be developing for each of those four areas. So, it's not a direct answer to, oh, these are our targets, but they will be coming and will be held to account on those by that influence board really shortly. But I think what we're doing at the moment is making sure that we're having a rich conversation around each of those areas that people can participate in through things like the Policy Jam, and by getting diverse spokespeople into the BCS voice, and also demonstrating that from within our own community. So I think there's been really good progress there and more visibility, but yeah, probably the targets need to come as the next phase, Charlie.
Yeah, and so more to come potentially at our next event in April. Thank you. So next question. Really good news on flexible payments being explored. There was a follow-up question on that around, are we considering things like payment holidays and or part-time working reductions?
Oh, that's a really difficult one. So I think the part-time one's easier because we do have an abated rate, a reduced rate for lower incomes, and people who are working part-time are much more likely to be qualifying for that. I think the threshold is £23,000 worth of earnings a year. So if anybody sort of fits within that, they can just go to customer services and get that that abated rate. Certainly for all the time that they're working part time. The payment holiday is an interesting one. It's something that I've thought about as well, particularly maybe as a loyalty piece for people who've been members for a longer time. We probably have to model that through and think about how it works. And at the moment, we're trying to get to grips with this retention piece and understanding all of those dynamics. So I probably wouldn't look at that as a priority now, but I think it is an interesting concept, particularly, with the sort of subscription culture that we've got now in certainly in the younger generations, and being able to press pause for a few months. So I think we really need to do some work to understand what it could look like for us, but it's an interesting thing for us to dive into in the future.
Excellent. And as I say, great news about the progress in flexible payments. We've hit 2:15, so I'm going to have to. I'm not going to be able to kind of get all of the questions answered, but I can look back on this afterwards and just send a couple of individual responses. I'm happy to do that as a follow-up. Tonight we'll be inviting Ben Turner, our head of membership product, to join us, and he'll be talking about our membership content strategy. So please do join us for that, and I'll be doing a bit of a workshop session, just understanding the types of content and how content's developed in our communities with attendees. Our next convention is just been confirmed, April the 18th, so keep that one in the diary. And our next kind of community event is going to be focused actually on treasurers in February, as we kind of reach the kind of budgeting processes, but also do a bit more on the treasurer training. So more information is due to be out in the next couple of days on that one. For our spring convention, Kerry's just added the link in Eventbrite. So April seems quite far away now, but if you are interested in registering, the link is in the chat. Thank you very much to all of our speakers. Thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Holly. And thank you to Chris. And of course, thank you to all of our community for taking part in the session, listening, or whether that's asking questions. It's much appreciated. Thank you all, and I hope to see you all tonight.